so we're going to continue on with our angle pairs now. So number 4 is vertically opposite angles. So if you have two straight lines crossing, vertically opposite angles are the ones that are opposite each other. They are called vertically opposite angles. If you just use the word opposite, you'll have your reason wrong in the exam. So we're going to make sure that we call them vertically opposite angles. And you can see by looking at this that these angles actually look equal to each other. So if you have a look at your arms crossed, okay, so if I have a look at the angle up the top here between my hands and the angle down the bottom, they look the same. So as I go like this, they look the same. As I widen it, they look the same. If things in geometry look the same, there's a fair chance they are the same, but you need to explain why. They are equal because we know that vertically opposite angles are always equal. Okay, so when you write your reason, you write the whole thing. Okay, the next one is angles on a straight line. So I know we said we're doing angle pairs, but we do start to break out into more than 2 angles sometimes. So these ones here, we've got 3 angles, and these 3 angles, if you look at each of them, they make up the whole 180 degrees on a straight line or a straight angle. So when we give the reason for this, you've got to say the whole thing. The angles on a straight line add up to 180 degrees. The whole thing has to be written. Okay, next, we have angles at a point. So we can split it up into any number of angles going around that point. I've got 4 different angles here, and if you look at them, let's say I start here and make my way through A, B, C, and then D, I'm back to where I started. So I've gone around one whole revolution, a whole 360 degrees as I went through those angles. So the reason is angles at a point add up to 360 degrees. Here is the point that we're talking about. It's really angles around a point, but they write it as angles at a point. Okay, so we're going to go through some examples here. The first one says, find the complement of 16 degrees. The word complement comes from the word complementary, and we know that complementary angles add up to 90 degrees. So they've given us 16 degrees. We've got to find the other angle that makes the two of them add up to 90. So you start here. Start with this. Start with your 90, take off the 16 that they gave you, and you'll find out with the bit that's left. Make sure you use your calculator. We don't want mistakes on this. Okay, the next one is find the supplement of 25 degrees. Supplement comes from the word supplementary. And supplementary means adds up to 180 degrees. So again, we're going to start with the 180 and take off the one they gave you, the 25, and you'll be left with the supplement of 25. All right, now those next ones, we're finding the value of each pronumeral. The word pronumeral just means the letter. We're finding the value of all the letters, but we have to give reasons along our way. Basically to explain what our working is and how we've arrived at our answer. So if we look at this first one, we're finding x. So I hope you can see we've got a right angle. So these two angles have to add up to 90. So to get x, we're going to start with the 90, take off the 20, and find out what's left for this angle. And you'll get 70 degrees. Now the reason, remember we talked about this before, they are complementary because we can see they're going to add up to that right angle of 90 degrees. But they're also next to each other, sharing that common arm. So it's complementary adjacent angles. You have to write both words in the answer. All right, now the other thing is when you give your reason, you've got to write it in brackets next to the line where you started to use it. Okay, so if you look at this one here, you'd be going, well, as a teacher, I'd be looking at it going, well, where'd you get the 90 from? And you'd say, well, I know that these are complementary and they're next to each other on the complementary angles. So you've got to explain exactly when you bring in another number that they didn't give you, where it came from. Okay, so up here in B, we're looking at these and I hope you can see we have angles at a point here. We know that angles at a point add up to 360. So our line of working is going to start with the 360. take off the number they gave you and get your answer. But you've got to explain to them where that number came from. So that's your reason. You've got to write it next to that line. All right, in C, we've got 3 letters to find. We need 3 reasons. So for A, I hope you can see if I put my hand over that part of the diagram, these 2 angles are on a straight line. So we know that angles on a straight line add up to 180 degrees. That's going to be our reason. So we're going to start with our 180, take off the 128 and find out what that angle A is. 52 degrees. So don't forget, you have to explain to them where that came from. That's why the reason has to be written there. All right, now B, these 2 are vertically opposite each other. And you know that vertically opposite angles are equal. So B will straight away equal 180 degrees and write your reason down. Vertically opposite angles are equal. So when we look at C, if we cover up this part of the diagram and just look over here, you can see these 2 are on a straight line. So we're going to start with our 180, take off the 128 and find out what's left, 52 degrees. But don't forget, you have to tell them where that 180 came from. And it came from here, knowing that angles on a straight line add up to 180 degrees. So we've got to be really perfect in our wording on our reasons. I'm going to come back in a minute on the next video and do a few more examples with you.